There's only one thing that drives me insane every morning. That silver license plate on that Dodge Charger, sitting smugly in the parking spot with my name on it. 50 times in 3 months. And then I realized if the system wouldn't handle him, I would. What started as a simple parking violation became my masterclass in cold, calculated revenge. By the time I was done, he'd learned that some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed, especially not 50 times. My name is Clara Mitchell, and I've spent the last 6 years building my life around precision. At 34, I've learned that success in corporate finance isn't about brilliance. It's about consistency, reliability, and the small rituals that keep chaos at bay. Every morning at Argent Edge Systems starts the same way. I pull into the parking garage at 7:23 a.m., coffee from Meridian's in my left hand, NPR's Morning Edition wrapping up its final segment through my speakers. The concrete structure smells like rain and motor oil, even on dry days here in Brighton Falls. Oregon does that to buildings, seeps into them, makes them permanently damp. My parking spot sits on the second level, third row from the elevator. Space 2C14. Not prime real estate by any means, but it's mine. The facilities manager had presented me with the assignment letter 2 years ago like it was a medal of honor. 6 years of perfect attendance reviews, he'd said. Company policy rewards dedication. That little placard, reserved, C. Mitchell, used to make me smile. A small victory in a world of quarterly reports and compliance meetings. It meant I'd never have to circle the garage like a vulture at 7:45, never have to sprint through puddles from the overflow lot 4 blocks away, never have to apologize for being late to the morning risk assessment briefing. I'm not someone who needs much. My apartment overlooks the Willamette River, but it's modest. 1 bedroom, functional furniture, a kitchen I actually use. I drive a 7-year-old Honda Accord that I'll probably keep for another 7 years. The parking spot, though? That was different. That was earned. Argent Edge occupies a gleaming 12-story building in Brighton Falls' tech corridor. All glass and steel ambition. We manage portfolios for startups that think they'll change the world. And my job is to make sure they don't burn through their funding before they figure out if they're right. It's detail work, spreadsheet work. The kind of work where being 15 minutes late because you couldn't find parking means missing crucial market opening data. I've structured my entire morning routine around that 7:23 arrival. Wake at 6 square, shower by 6:15, coffee stop at 7:10. The 7-minute buffer between 7:23 and 7:30 gives me time to check overseas market closes on my phone, smooth my blazer, prepare my face for another day of calculated enthusiasm. Some people might call it rigid. My younger sister Emma certainly does. Usually while she's crashing on my couch between artistic ventures. But rigidity is just another word for reliability. And in financial services, reliability is currency. The parking spot made it all work. 1 small square of predictability in a world where algorithms could tank portfolios in milliseconds and a tweet could destroy quarterly projections. Every morning, I'd round that corner on level 2, see my name on that sign, and know that at least this one thing was under control. I should have known it couldn't last, because here's what they don't tell you about corporate life. It's not the big betrayals that break you. It's the small invasions, the daily paper cuts of disrespect that slowly bleed out your sanity. And it always starts with someone thinking the rules don't apply to them. Someone young, someone charming, someone who drives a silver Dodge Charger and thinks the world reorganizes itself around their convenience. Someone who's about to learn that Clara Mitchell didn't spend 6 years building her perfect routine just to have it demolished by an entitled asshole with a marketing degree and a smirk. But I'm getting ahead of myself. On that last normal morning, a Tuesday in early March, I pulled into the garage at exactly 7:23, coffee warm in my hand. Portfolio reviews queued on my tablet, completely unaware that my carefully constructed world was about to meet Ryan Keene. The first time it happened, I almost laughed. March 12th, 7:23 a.m. I rounded the corner to level 2, already mentally reviewing the Morrison Industries audit when I saw it. A silver Dodge Charger, gleaming under the fluorescent lights like some misplaced showroom model, Occupying space 2C14. My space. I actually checked the sign twice, thinking maybe I'd had a stroke. But no, there was my name, C. Mitchell, partially obscured by the charger's oversized side mirror. Must be new, I thought. Someone who hadn't gotten the memo about assigned parking. I found a visitor spot on level 4, added 12 minutes to my morning routine, and sent a polite email to building security. Small mix-up with the parking assignments. Could you please remind everyone about the reserved space policy? The security guard, Marcus, responded within an hour. Taken care of, Ms. Mitchell. Won't happen again. Except it did. The very next morning. This time, I noticed details. The vanity plate, Ring King, a parking permit dangling from the rear view, legitimate, current. This wasn't a visitor. This was an employee who'd looked at my reserved sign and decided it was more of a suggestion than a rule. I parked in overflow, 4 blocks away, in the rain. By the time I reached my desk, my wool pants were soaked from the knees down. My hair was frizzing despite the industrial-strength product I used. And I'd missed the opening bell. Patricia from compliance raised an eyebrow as I squeaked past in my wet shoes. Everything all right, Clara? Parking issue, I muttered, firing up my monitors. You have assigned parking. I'm aware. That afternoon, I made my second trip to security. Marcus pulled up the footage, and we watched a young man exit the charger at 7:15 a.m., khakis, untucked button-down. Messenger bag slung carelessly over one shoulder. He'd glanced at my sign, shrugged, and walked away. Ryan Keene, Marcus said, reading from his database. Started 2 weeks ago, marketing department, 7th floor. Can you speak with him? I'll send him a reminder email. Email. I was beginning to hate that word. The third time, I was waiting. I'd arrived at 7:10, positioned my Honda strategically to watch the entrance to my row. At 7:14, the charger prowled in like it owned the place. I watched Ryan Keene. Yes, I'd looked him up in the company directory, slide into my spot with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told. No. I intercepted him at the elevator. Excuse me. My voice was professional granite. You're in my parking space. He turned, and I got my first real look at the face behind the violation. 29 years old, according to his LinkedIn, classic Pacific Northwest tech bro aesthetic, carefully disheveled hair. Friday casual on a Wednesday. Smile that probably closed deals and opened dating apps with equal success. Oh, hey. He said it like we were old friends. You must be C. Mitchell. Sorry about that. I've been getting in super early for this campaign launch. Didn't think anyone would mind. I mind. It's my assigned space. Right, totally. He was already backing toward the elevator. I'll move it tomorrow, promise. Tomorrow. And the tomorrow after that. And the tomorrow after that. 2 weeks in, I'd documented 12 violations. I'd spoken to him 4 times. Each conversation a masterclass in deflection. Oh man, completely spaced. Traffic was insane. Grabbed the first spot I saw. I'll definitely remember tomorrow. I escalated to Tom Bradley, the facilities manager. He scheduled a meeting, then canceled, rescheduled, then canceled again. When we finally connected, he looked at me over his readers like I was reporting a missing staplers. It's just parking, Clara. It's assigned parking that I earned through 6 years of. I'll send out a general reminder to all staff. A general reminder to all staff. For a specific violation by a specific person who specifically didn't give a damn. By the end of March, Ryan Keene had parked in my spot 19 times. I had 19 photos on my phone. 19 timestamps. 19 mornings of overflow parking. My pristine routine was shattered. I was showing up to meetings flustered, distracted, seething with the kind of rage that comes from being gaslit by infrastructure. The 20th time, I found him leaning against the charger, scrolling through his phone like he was waiting for an Uber. You need to move your car. He looked up, and for the first time, the mask slipped. The friendly confusion was gone, replaced by something sharper, amused, predatory, almost. "You know," he said, sliding his phone into his pocket. "You could just come in earlier. I mean, if it's that important to you." Something crystallized in that moment. This wasn't negligence or misunderstanding. This was a power play, a test, some primitive corporate marking of territory by a junior employee who decided I was an easy target. "Move your car." "Sure thing." He flashed that sales closer smile. Right after my 8 a.m. I stood there in my sensible heels, rain starting to spatter the concrete, watching him stroll toward the elevator without a backward glance, calculating how badly I needed this job, how much violence I could commit without leaving forensic evidence. That's when I started keeping the log. Not just photos, detailed documentation, arrival times, weather conditions, financial impact of late arrivals, emotional distress quantification. Because Ryan Keene had made a crucial error. He'd mistaken my adherence to rules for weakness, my professionalism for passivity. He thought he was stealing a parking space. He was about to learn he'd declared war. April arrived with the kind of rain that made Brighton Falls famous, relentless, sideways, searching for any gap in your defenses. The morning it all changed. I stood in that rain for 7 minutes, watching Ryan's Charger occupy my space while I waited for a tow truck that never came. Company policy. Marcus had explained the day before. We can't tow employee vehicles without executive approval. But it's my assigned space. I understand, Ms. Mitchell. But Mr. Keene is also an employee. It's complicated. Complicated. I was beginning to understand that complicated meant we don't want to deal with this. That April morning, I parked 6 blocks away. Overflow was full. By the time I reached the building, my umbrella had inverted twice. My leather portfolio was waterlogged, and I was 23 minutes late for the quarterly risk assessment presentation. A presentation I was leading. Patricia's expression when I walked in said everything. 12 senior managers around the conference table, waiting. My slides already up on the screen, cursor blinking patiently, and me, dripping, disheveled, destroying 6 years of carefully cultivated professional presence. "Apologies," I managed, setting down my ruined portfolio. "Parking situation." Someone, I think it was Davidson from Emerging Markets, actually chuckled. "Maybe time to invest in a better alarm clock, Mitchell." I delivered the presentation, hit every data point, answered every question. But I could feel it, the shift in the room's energy. Clara Mitchell, the reliable one, the precise one, the one you could set your watch by, was now the one who showed up late looking like she'd swum to work. After the meeting, I went to the bathroom and stood in a stall, shaking, not from cold, from rage so pure it felt like electricity in my veins. 6 years of perfect attendance, 6 years of being the first one in, last one out, 6 years of proving that a woman in finance had to be twice as good to be considered equal. 23 minutes. That's all it had taken to crack that facade. I started documenting everything with forensic intensity. Spreadsheets with timestamps, weather conditions, distance walked, shoes ruined, meetings compromised. I calculated the actual financial impact. $47.50 in dry cleaning, $175 in replacement shoes, $1,247 in hypothetical lost productivity based on my hourly rate. But it was the intangibles that were killing me. Like the morning I ran into Ryan in the elevator, him fresh and composed, me panting from my 8-minute sprint from the overflow lot. "Crazy morning," he asked, all innocent concern. "Your car is in my spot." "Oh, is it?" That slight smile. I didn't even notice. Habit, I guess. Habit. He'd colonized my parking space so thoroughly it had become habit. I tried different tactics. Arriving at 6:45 a.m., he was already there. Leaving notes on his windshield, they disappeared without acknowledgement. Copying HR on my emails to security, form responses about reviewing the situation. The breaking point came on April 18th. I'd parked 7 blocks away in a pay lot, $12 that I would never expense out of principle. The rain had evolved into something biblical. I'd forgotten my umbrella. My phone died halfway through the walk, killing my GPS. And I got turned around in the identical streets of downtown Brighton Falls. When I finally stumbled into the lobby at 8:17 a.m., I looked like I'd been waterboarded. Sharon from reception actually gasped. I squelched to the elevator, leaving puddles with every step. And when the doors opened on the finance floor, there was Ryan, chatting with Patricia, both holding coffee, laughing. "Clara." Patricia's voice was bright with false surprise. "We were just talking about the Henderson account. Ryan has some interesting ideas about market positioning." Ryan turned to me, and his expression was a masterpiece. Concern layered over amusement, layered over victory. "Rough morning. You know, I keep a spare umbrella in my car. Happy to lend it to you." His car, in my spot? "That's kind of you." I managed. "Hey, we're all on the same team, right?" He raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. "Argent Edge strong." Patricia laughed. Actually laughed. Like he'd said something clever instead of reciting corporate propaganda while standing there in his dry clothes, having strolled from his stolen parking space to his marketing department easy life. That night, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine and my laptop, staring at my documentation. 43 violations over 6 weeks. 43 photos. 43 mornings of watching my professional image erode one puddle at a time. I pulled up the employee handbook. Section 4.3.2, Assigned Parking Policy. I knew it by heart now. Violations may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Except that only worked if anyone cared about enforcement. I opened a new spreadsheet, started researching parking law in Oregon, towing regulations, property rights, contract law as it applied to employee benefits. I read case studies, legal precedents, city ordinances. Ryan thought this was about a parking space. He thought I was some uptight finance drone who'd eventually give up, worn down by bureaucratic indifference and daily inconvenience. He didn't understand that he'd touched something deeper. This wasn't about concrete and white lines anymore. This was about respect, about the 1,000 small ways women in corporate America are told their boundaries don't matter. About every time I'd been called sweetheart in a meeting, or had my ideas repeated by a male colleague, or been told I was overthinking, something that needed exactly this much thought. I closed my laptop and walked to my window, watching the lights of Brighton Falls blur through the rain. Somewhere out there, Ryan Keene was probably at a bar, telling his marketing bros about the uptight finance lady who got worked up over parking. Let him laugh. Let them all laugh. I was done playing defense. Tomorrow, I would start playing offense, and I would play to win. Because if there's one thing 6 years in corporate finance had taught me, it was this. The system doesn't punish people who break the rules. It punishes people who get caught. The solution came to me at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, somewhere between my third glass of wine and my 15th review of Oregon Revised Statutes Chapter 98. Private property, authorization, implied consent. I sat up so fast I knocked my laptop off the couch. The parking garage wasn't public property, it was leased by Argent Edge. And my assigned space wasn't just a perk, it was part of my compensation package, documented in my employment agreement, which made it, legally speaking, mine during business hours. I spent the weekend building my case like I was preparing for an SEC audit. First, I hired a lawyer. Not through the company, my own. Diane Waterhouse. A property rights specialist who listened to my story with the kind of still attention that made me want to cry. "You have documentation?" she asked. I showed her my spreadsheets, the photos, the email chains. "This is..." She paused, adjusting her glasses. "Impressively thorough. I work in risk assessment. I can see that." She leaned back. "Here's what most people don't understand about parking law. If you have exclusive right to a space, documented, assigned, part of your employment agreement, You have the same rights as any property holder, including the right to remove unauthorized vehicles. But company policy governs employee discipline. It doesn't supersede property law. She pulled out a legal pad. We're going to need proper signage, clear warnings, documentation of notice given. But yes, Ms. Mitchell, you can have him towed. I spent $340 on legal consultation, another $200 on professional grade signs. Reserved parking. Violators will be towed at owner's expense. Tow authority, ORS 98.830. The sign company owner, a gruff man named Carl, actually whistled when I explained the specifications. Someone piss you off? You could say that. Good for you, honey. Make it reflective. Harder to claim they didn't see it. Next came the towing company. I interviewed 4 before settling on Precision Towing. The owner, Malik, was a former Marine who ran his operation like a military unit. Let me understand, he said, reviewing my documentation. This guy parks in your assigned spot every morning? 43 times in 6 weeks. And your company won't do anything? They suggested I arrive earlier. His expression hardened. My daughter's in corporate. I know how this goes. He pulled out a contract. Here's how we'll work it. You call. We respond within 15 minutes. Full documentation. Photos before and after. Everything by the book. What about liability? That's the beauty of property law. If you have the right to the space, which you do, and proper signage is posted, which it will be, then liability transfers to the violator. He'll have to pay to get his car back. Every time. I scheduled the sign installation for the following Sunday night, paid the overtime rate to have it done after hours. Carl's team mounted it at exactly the height required by law, with industrial bolts that would take serious effort to remove. Monday morning, I arrived at 6:30 a.m., parked in visitor parking, waited. At 7:14, right on schedule. Ryan's Charger prowled into the garage. I watched him approach my space, watched him see the sign. He actually stopped, reversed, pulled forward again, got out, stood there reading it. Then, and this is what told me everything I needed to know about Ryan Keene, he laughed, took a photo with his phone, and parked in my space anyway. I gave him 5 minutes. Legal requirement. Then I called Malik. Precision Towing. This is Clara Mitchell, Space 2C14 at Argent Edge Systems. On our way. I positioned myself on level 3, perfect vantage point. Watched the tow truck arrive with military precision. Watched them photograph the violation, the sign, the license plate. Watched them work with the kind of efficiency that made my risk assessor heart sing. 14 minutes from call to clearance. I strolled into the office at 7:45, coffee in hand, emails already answered on my phone. Patricia nodded approvingly. Nice to see you back on schedule. Parking situations resolved, I said. The explosion came at 10:47 a.m. I heard Ryan before I saw him, his voice carrying across 3 departments. By the time he reached finance, he'd gathered an audience. You had my car towed? I looked up from my monitors, expression neutral. I'm sorry. Don't play dumb, you had my fucking car towed. From my assigned parking space. I tilted my head. The one with the new sign, that must have been building security. They've really stepped up enforcement. His face was the color of a failed quarterly report. This is insane. You're insane. I'm thorough, I corrected. There's a difference. Tom Bradley materialized, huffing from his sprint from facilities. What's going on here? She had my car towed. Ryan pointed at me like I'd committed murder. From Ms. Mitchell's assigned space? Tom looked deeply uncomfortable. Well, technically, I said, pulling up the employee handbook on my screen. Section 4.3.2 states that violations of parking policy may result in vehicle removal at owner's expense. Nobody actually does that, Ryan's voice cracked. I do. I turned back to my monitors. Every single time. The beauty of corporate culture is that once you demonstrate you're willing to follow through on a threat, people recalculate their risk assessments. Ryan stood there, mouth opening and closing, while the gathered crowd suddenly found urgent business elsewhere. "This isn't over," he finally managed. "Of course not," I agreed. "It's just beginning. See you tomorrow morning." He stormed off. Tom Bradley lingered, looking at me with something between horror and admiration. "Clara, maybe we should discuss—" "Nothing to discuss, Tom. I'm simply protecting my assigned company resource from unauthorized use. I'm sure you understand. From a facilities management perspective." He left without another word. That night, I sat in my assigned space, engine off, watching the empty garage. I'd won the first battle. But I knew Ryan. Knew his type. He wouldn't give up. He'd escalate. Which was fine. I'd escalated too. I had Malik on speed dial. Diane Waterhouse on retainer. A legally bulletproof sign bolted to concrete, and something else. Something that 6 weeks of morning humiliation had forged in the part of me that used to just want a quiet life and a reliable routine. I had the appetite for war. Tuesday morning, 7:15 a.m. The charger slid into my space like nothing had happened. I watched from level 3, coffee warm in my hand, almost admiring his audacity. Ryan got out, glanced at my sign, and actually smirked. He thought yesterday was a fluke, a one-time power play. Precision towing. Clara Mitchell, same location, en route. By the time Ryan returned at 10:30 a.m. to discover his car missing again, his explosion was more controlled. He found me in the break room, refilling my coffee. $300, he said quietly. "It cost me $300 to get my car back yesterday." "Sounds like a parking problem." I stirred in cream, not looking up. "You know what? Fine." He leaned against the counter. "You want to play?" "Let's play." Wednesday, he tried to outsmart me. Arrived at 6:45 a.m. I'd been there since 6:30, legally parked in my space, sipping coffee and reviewing overseas markets on my tablet. The look on his face when he drove past was worth the early alarm. Thursday, he tried the opposite approach. Waited until 8:30, probably hoping I'd be in meetings. I wasn't. I was in my car, in my space, joining the morning risk call via phone. I waved as he circled past for the third time. Friday was when he made his first real mistake. I arrived at my usual 7:23 to find my space empty, but wrong. Debris scattered across it, broken glass, looked like a bottle. Oil stains that weren't there yesterday. 2 orange traffic cones positioned to make parking nearly impossible. I took photos, forwarded them to Diane Waterhouse. Then I swept the glass myself, moved the cones, and parked. The email came at noon. HR, requesting a meeting about workplace conflict resolution. I sat across from Jennifer Huang, our HR director, while Ryan lounged in the chair beside me like he was at a coffee shop. "Clara," Jennifer began, "Ryan has expressed concerns about hostile workplace behavior." "Hostile?" I opened my portfolio, pulled out my documentation. "I'm protecting my assigned parking space. Here's the employee agreement, here's the assignment letter, here's the legal opinion on property rights." "She's harassing me," Ryan interrupted. "Having my car towed every day." "Every day you park illegally," I corrected, "is creating a hostile work environment." Jennifer looked tired. "Clara, surely we can find a compromise." "Absolutely," I smiled. "He can park literally anywhere else. That's not—" "Jennifer." I leaned forward. For 6 weeks, I followed proper channels. I reported to security, to facilities, to you. I have email documentation of every attempt. The response was inadequate, so I took legal action to protect my contractual rights. If Argent Edge has an issue with that, perhaps we should involve legal. The mention of legal changed the room's temperature. Jennifer shifted papers unnecessarily. "That won't be necessary. Ryan, you need to stop parking in Clara's space." "This is bullshit," he muttered. "Ryan!" Jennifer's voice sharpened. The assignments are clear. Park somewhere else. But Ryan Keene didn't become Ryan Keene by accepting defeat. The next week became a chess match. Monday. He parked diagonally across my space and the one next to it, technically not in my space. I had him towed for blocking access. Tuesday. He had a friend park there instead. Silver Honda, no Argent Edge permit, towed for unauthorized access. Wednesday. He tried parking directly behind my space, blocking me in. I called security and Malik. Security documented the safety violation. Malik towed him for creating a hazard. Each tow cost him $300. By my calculation, he'd spent $1,500 in 8 days. Thursday morning, I found him waiting by my space. Not in a car, just standing there, hands in his pockets. $1,500, he said conversationally. That's what this has cost me. Expensive education. You know what I make in marketing? Entry level? He stepped closer. $38K, before taxes. Yo, then you really can't afford to keep this up. Something flickered in his eyes. Neither can you. I thought about the legal fees, the early mornings, the energy spent on this war. Then I thought about every meeting where I'd been talked over, every time my ideas had been credited to someone else, every small surrender that had brought me to this parking space, this moment, this hill I'd chosen to die on. Try me, I said. Friday brought the escalation I'd been expecting. I arrived to find my space occupied not by Ryan's charger, but by a professionally printed banner. Reserved for Clara Mitchell, parking Nazi. Cute. I took photos. Had the banner removed as vandalism. Parked in my space. But Ryan wasn't done. By lunch, the banner photo had circulated through the marketing department's Slack. By afternoon, someone had created a meme. My face. Photoshopped onto a parking enforcement officer, captioned, "Clara's coming for your car." I sat at my desk, watching the Slack notifications pop up, each one another small dagger. The finance team stayed silent. Professional courtesy or self-preservation, I couldn't tell. At 4:47 p.m., Patricia stopped by my desk. "You're winning, you know." I looked up. Am I? He's making himself look petty. Unstable. Marketing's already talking about his missed deadlines. She adjusted her blazer. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone hang themselves. After she left, I pulled up the towing reports. 8 incidents in 2 weeks, $2,400 in fees, plus whatever he'd spent on banners and bribes to friends. He was bleeding money he didn't have, hemorrhaging professional capital. All for a parking space he never had any right to. And Monday morning, I'd be back in my spot at 7:23. Because here's what Ryan Keene still didn't understand. This wasn't about winning anymore. It wasn't even about the parking space. It was about proving that some boundaries, once established, would be defended to the last breath. Even if that breath smelled like coffee and underground parking exhaust at 6:30 in the morning. Especially then, the end came faster than I expected, triggered by Ryan's own desperation. Week 3 of what marketing had dubbed the parking wars started with a Monday morning email from the CEO. All staff. Subject line: professionalism and resource allocation. It has come to my attention, Richard Steinberg wrote, that company resources are being utilized for personal conflicts, effective immediately. Any employee causing operational disruption through misuse of company property, including parking facilities, will face formal review. I read it twice. Ryan had overplayed his hand, gone crying to the C-suite, and Steinberg, who ran Argent Edge like a Swiss watch, had responded exactly as any competent CEO would, by shutting down the nonsense. Ryan must have read the same email, because he didn't show up that morning. Or the next. Wednesday. I arrived to find my space truly empty for the first time in months. No charger, no debris, no passive-aggressive signage, just 60 square feet of concrete that smelled like victory and motor oil. That afternoon, Malik called. "Ms. Mitchell, just wanted to confirm. We've had 8 consecutive cancellations for your location. Everything okay? Better than okay. Send me the final invoice. Thursday brought the formal announcement. Ryan Keene was transitioning to pursue opportunities outside Argent Edge. Corporate speak for quit before we fire you. The marketing slack exploded. Apparently, Ryan had missed 3 client deadlines during his war with me, burned through his probationary period goodwill. The parking situation was just the visible symptom of a deeper performance issue. Heard about Keene, Patricia said, appearing at my desk with 2 cups of coffee. Shame. He had potential. Did he? She smiled, that sharp Patricia smile that had survived 20 years in corporate finance. No, but I'm practicing my empathy. HR seminar. Friday was cleanup day. I met with Jennifer from HR to formally close the complaint file. She looked relieved. I hope we can put this behind us, she said, fingers hovering over her keyboard. Already have. I signed the incident closure form. Quick question, though. My parking assignment, that's permanent, correct? After this, Clara, that space might as well have your name carved in the concrete. That evening, I sat in my car in the empty garage, engine off, processing the strange anticlimax of total victory. $720 in legal fees. Approximately 30 hours of early arrivals and strategic warfare. 1 enemy vanquished. Worth it? From a pure ROI perspective, absolutely not. But from a human perspective? From the perspective of a woman who'd been told to smile through 1,000 small violations, priceless. My phone buzzed. Emma, my sister. Drinks? I'm buying. Since when do you buy? Since my uptight big sister became a TikTok legend. Someone filmed your tow truck ballet. 2.3 million views. I found the video that night. Shaky vertical footage of Malik's team efficiently removing the charger, set to orchestral music. The comments were brutal, hilarious, and surprisingly supportive. Parking justice warrior. Not all heroes wear capes, some wear sensible blazers. This is the energy I need for 2025. But the comment that stopped me cold was from a username I recognized. Rin Kung Marketing. Learned a valuable lesson. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Respect to CM. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the app and deleted it from my phone. I'd won. Completely. Utterly. But victory, I was learning, came with its own weight. The next Monday, I established a new routine. Arrive at 7:23, park in my space, but now I also did something else. I walked through the garage, noting the other assigned spaces, particularly the ones belonging to women, to junior employees, to anyone who might not feel empowered to defend their small square of corporate territory. Because Ryan Keene wasn't unique, he was just the one who'd chosen the wrong target. 2 weeks later, I noticed a new sign in the garage. Official Argent Edge letterhead. Parking assignments are strictly enforced. Violations will result in immediate towing and disciplinary action. Below it, in smaller text, policy updated following employee feedback. I smiled, thinking of Ryan's $2,400 education. My $720 investment. The price of establishing a boundary and defending it. That morning, I parked in my space, gathered my things, and headed for the elevator. In the reflection of the closing doors, I caught a glimpse of my face. Same features, same professional presentation. But something had shifted behind the eyes. A hardness, maybe, or just the look of someone who'd discovered that the system would bend if you applied the right pressure in the right places. The elevator rose toward the finance floor, and I thought about Ryan Keene starting over at some other company. Would he tell the story? Warn others about the crazy finance woman who'd had him towed every morning? I hoped so. I hoped he'd tell everyone. Because somewhere out there was another Clara Mitchell, circling a parking garage in the rain, late for a meeting, wondering if this was just how things were. And maybe, just maybe, she'd hear the story of the woman who'd fought back, who'd turned a parking space into a battleground and won, who'd proved that sometimes the smallest territories are worth the biggest fights. The elevator opened, I stepped out onto my floor, heels clicking with metronomic precision. 7:30 a.m., right on schedule. 6 months later, I still arrive at 7:23 a.m. The morning ritual remains unchanged. Coffee from Meridian's, NPR wrapping up. The familiar smell of concrete and rain. But now when I round the corner to level 2, space 2C14, something's different. The sign is still there. My name in authoritative steel. But it's not alone anymore. The entire row gleams with new placards, each one bearing a name, each one properly enforced. The Wild West days of the Argent Edge parking garage are over. I've become something of a legend here. Not the kind I'd planned on. I'd always imagined my reputation would be built on flawless quarterly reports and risk assessments that saved millions. Instead, I'm the woman who broke Ryan Keene. The one who spent $720 to defend 60 square feet of concrete and somehow changed company policy in the process. New employees hear the story during orientation now. Tom Bradley tells it with a mixture of awe and warning. Respect the assignments. We enforce them now. Trust me on this. But here's what they don't know. What I've never told anyone. I dream about it sometimes. Not nightmares, just dreams where I'm circling the garage endlessly, looking for a space that's already mine. I wake up at 3 a.m., heart racing, reaching for my phone to check the time, making sure I won't be late, making sure my space will be free. The hardness I saw in the elevator reflection that day? It's still there. Permanent now. Like the sign on my parking space. I catch glimpses of it during meetings when someone tries to talk over me. They usually stop mid-sentence, something in my expression warning them off. You've changed, Emma told me last week. We were having our monthly dinner, and she was studying me over her wine glass. You're scarier now. Scarier? Not in a bad way, just nobody's going to steal your parking space again, or anything else. She was right. The Clara Mitchell who'd sent polite emails and waited for the system to work, she'd died somewhere between the third and fourth toe. What emerged was someone harder, sharper, infinitely less willing to accept that this was just how things were. I pull into my space now, turn off the engine, and sit for a moment in the morning quiet. Through the concrete pillars, I can see the city waking up. Brighton Falls in all its damp, ambitious glory. Somewhere out there, Ryan Keene is probably pulling into a different garage, careful to check the signs, traumatized into permanent compliance. I gather my things, portfolio, coffee, tablet with the morning's reports already loaded. The elevator is waiting, empty at this hour, and I step inside. As the doors close, I catch my reflection again. Navy blazer, sensible heels, hair controlled despite the humidity. The same uniform I've worn for 6 years, but the woman wearing it isn't the same at all. She's someone who discovered that the price of being left alone is eternal vigilance. That sometimes you have to be willing to go to war over the small things, because the small things are all they'll let you fight for. That in a world of people who think rules don't apply to them, being the one person willing to enforce those rules makes you either a hero or a villain, depending on which end of the tow truck you're on. The elevator rises, and I think about my space waiting for me tomorrow. And the next day, and every day after that. A 60-square-foot kingdom won through spreadsheets and spite, defended with strategic thinking and a tow truck company on speed dial. Some people climb mountains, some people run marathons. I paralyzed a marketing bro's finances over a parking space. We all have our victories. The elevator opens onto the finance floor. Another day of risk assessments and portfolio reviews awaits. But first, I allow myself one small moment of satisfaction. Because in a world that tells you to be the bigger person, to let it go, to not make waves, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is refuse. Sometimes you have to be the smaller person, the petty person, the one who will die on this particular hill. Sometimes you have to teach them that stealing someone's parking space 50 times isn't just about parking. It's about power. And sometimes, just sometimes, power belongs to whoever's willing to dial the tow truck every single morning. Where people think everything can be overlooked with eyes closed, I simply opened mine. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed this tale of parking lot justice, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had to stand your ground over something others thought was too small to fight for? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments.